Good morning, everyone. My name is John Heerdink, and welcome to our Tribe Public CEO presentation and Q&A event titled How New Drug Delivery Methods Are Changing Lives, Eupraxia's Innovations Explained. This event will be co-hosted by James A. Helliwell, MD, CEO and founder of Eupraxia Pharmaceuticals, trades on the Nasdaq under the symbol EPRX. In short, Eupraxia is a clinical stage biotechnology company focused on development of locally delivered extended release products that have the potential to address therapeutic areas with high unmet medical need. The company strives to provide improved patient benefit and has developed technology designed to deliver targeted, long-lasting activity with fewer side effects. As many of you know, I am a managing member of Tribe Public. Our website is tribepublic.com, tribepublic.com. Members from 31 plus countries and 50 states have joined the Tribe Public freely to gain direct corporate access and understanding from leaders and experts that they care about during our webinar events, and also through 41 venue sites located across the U.S. where we host corporate-sponsored lunch and dinner and speaking engagements with local tribe members to help develop the community and for all to learn. Tribe members, furthermore, are invited to submit names of experts and leaders of industry via our free wish list process at our website, adding names of companies, subjects that span across all sectors so that they can learn more. Please note that I am also the managing director of Vista Partners LLC, a registered investment advisor in California, and its website is vistapglobal.com, where we create content and understanding from the largest companies in the world like NVIDIA and Roche to small companies that you probably never heard of. So please join us there as well. Please review both sets of disclaimers at each site, and note that I am currently a shareholder and advisor to Eupraxia Pharmaceuticals. A video of this event will be published at our Tribe Public YouTube channel soon thereafter and be sent out to all post the event via the Tribe This Week, which is our e-newsletter that goes out to all that join our events to reconnect and to grow the wish list that we all want to from these experts that we want to learn from. I'd also like to thank you all for sending in many of your questions that you've submitted already for the CEO today at Eupraxia, and remind that you can, during the event, send further questions through the Zoom chat feature at any point. We'll do our best to try to get them answered. Thank you also to Eupraxia for joining us today. And now let's get started. And James, if you'd be so kind, because we have some new folks on here today from the tribe, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to found Eupraxia, and then get started with your presentation? Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning, John, and good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us this morning. By background, I'm a physician and actually a cardiothoracic anesthesiologist. So that means I worked in the operating room, and my primary focus was heart transplants and artificial heart work. And how that really led to doing what we're doing today is that when we look at sort of what I was doing in the operating room, what it required was great precision. So in other words, we had to make sure that because those patients were so sick, that drugs were delivered just the right drug to just the right place at just the right dose. And when we take a pill, like a blood pressure pill or anything else that we take, it goes everywhere in the body and sort of peaks and troughs. So it looks like a big mountain range when we look at the dosing of the drug. And so founded the company to try and solve that problem so that people outside the operating room can benefit from the kind of precision we could deliver inside the operating room. And so founded this with my co-founder, Dr. Amanda Malone, who's a PhD in bioengineering from Stanford. And really sort of, as we talk about the solution today, you'll see engineered that solution.
Thank you, James.
So there's sort of a bit of the background for you.
So thank you, I appreciate it. Yeah, and if you could maybe just move on into your presentation, and then we'll address Q&A towards the end. Okay.
Great. So as I was sort of mentioning there, when we look at what we developed something called the diffuse sphere. And this really is Dr. Malone, our sort of my co-founder and chief scientific officer. When I say engineered this, this is a feat of engineering. When we look at when people have tried to create extended release drugs or drugs that get injected into localities to last a bit longer or be a bit more precise, what they rely on is degradation. So in other words, it is a mixture of drug and a lot of other things, usually a bunch of polymers that degrade and then release the drug that's trapped inside. Interestingly, that's not a very biologic way to do it. Our body everywhere relies on diffusion to maintain stability or homeostasis. So when we think about, our heart, our lungs, our kidneys, our GI tract, all of it is about moving things across membranes to maintain balance. And so what we did was actually design these microspheres that you see in front of you. Now they're about 100 microns in size. There's a variety of pieces here that are critical in the technology to how we attain the precision that we attain. So first, at 100 microns in size, when you inject this into a tissue, it is too big to move. So it actually stays where you put it. And because of the way it's engineered, you'll notice that over time, it doesn't change in size. So even though we are utilizing the drug that's inside, because it's diffusing and transiting across the membrane of this microsphere, you're getting the drug released into the tissue without reducing the size. So over time, it neither gets faster nor does it move, which is very different than normal. Normally, things will move, they'll cross tissues, they'll enter the lymphatic system or the vascular system. And so, what we aim for here is to be able to be incredibly precise. Now, I'm going to give you an example today with our lead asset to be able to show you how this precision actually works, how it creates a clinical difference and a difference actually in the tissues, but really to be able to act as an example to tell you what else we can do with the DiffuSphere technology platform. So through the course of this, what you'll see is we've really established proof of concept for the technology itself. It's very tunable, our ability to decide how long we want something to last, what dose we want it to be, and what tissue we want it to be. We've done a lot of this with steroids. So today, the drug we're talking about is fluticasone propionate, which is a very potent steroid that you may know as Flovent or Flonase. That's how it's traditionally taken. We've converted that into an injectable that is inside our DiffuSphere technology. As we go through this, I'm sure in your minds, as you listen to the presentation, you will start to say, could it work for and then another indication? And the answer is yes. For the most part, we believe this has very broad applicability. And I'll come back to that after having walked through some data with you. So let's sort of ground how the DiffuSphere works in a disease itself, so you can really see what we mean by how this works and the impact it has. Now, many people on this call may not have heard of eosinophilic esophagitis, which is really interesting because we have all heard of Crohn's disease, and yet this disease is almost as common as Crohn's disease is in the United States. So why haven't we heard about it? Well, it's actually a fairly new disease. What even is this disease? So it is an inflammatory disease that is progressive and what we call fibrostenotic, meaning that you get lots of inflammation, you then get fibrosis with scar tissue, and that then creates narrowing or stenosis in the esophagus. The symptoms of this disease are debilitating to people's lives and make it very difficult to function in a normal kind of social environment where food is so much at the center of everything that we do, both from a social perspective, a work perspective, and of course, a survival perspective. People have great difficulty swallowing. They have great pain on swallowing. They're often regurgitating and or ending up in a merge with food that is actually stuck in their esophagus that needs to be manually removed. So a really devastating disease and one that is growing really, really rapidly. So in 2020, this was considered an orphan disease. Only 150,000 patients had it. The answer to this is that really what's happening is that, yes, the disease is growing, but a lot of it is because we're actually looking for the disease now. And so we're realizing that a lot of people who've been having swallowing difficulties they don't have reflux, they don't have some other problem. They actually have eosinophilic esophagitis. So the number of patients is rising very, very dramatically. And the number is actually probably much bigger than even what you see here in these estimates of 500,000 plus as of today. There really is just one therapy that's approved in the US for long-term therapy. It's a weekly injection, and has made a really big difference for patients. It is, sort of a sea change for patients, yet only a third of patients are actually really feeling better and getting clinical remission with this drug. But that's a dramatic improvement over what was available before. Patients do go for an annual endoscopy. And so that gets to the start of how we deliver the DiffuSphere. We piggyback on that procedure that patients are already going for to be able to deliver. Now, we've talked about the DiffuSphere and how it's localized. So it is about delivering the drug directly into a tissue. So what you're looking at here is an incredibly complex disease process. This is EoE in the tissue of the esophagus. So if you imagine taking something systemically, it will go and affect every receptor in the body, not just those in the esophagus. What we're doing is taking a corticosteroid, fluticasone propionate, that we actually know works to treat this disease. It has been used off-label and orally, and other steroids have been used on-label and orally. And we know that they work, but the problem is it bypasses the esophagus so quickly, it's very difficult to get an effective concentration without getting lots of side effects. Through the endoscopy, by actually delivering an injection that patients can't feel and is very quick to administer, we actually are able to place inside this tissue the drug itself. So when we talk about that precision, that's the precision of the location. We're putting it right where we want it. And then the DiffuSphere is delivering the drug over a long period of time in a very stable way. So let's look at a little bit of data of how this is actually working. So here what you can see is the trial that I'm going to be talking about data from today. And so you can see the injection pattern represented by the black dots of what we are doing in this dose escalation trial. So it means we're slowly giving more drug as we go up in sort of the patient groups until we're giving 8 milligrams per injection site, covering all of those black dots you see there. And this is a very rapid procedure. This is about 3 to 4 minutes to be able to do this. It doesn't take very long, and it's a procedure physicians, gastroenterologists are quite used to doing. So let's now look at the DiffuSphere in action in terms of delivering the drug itself. So if you think about a long-acting drug, which might be a once a week or maybe a once a month injection, it will still look a bit like a mountaintop. So it's got a peak and then a decline. So it goes up and comes down. What you rarely see is flat. And that's the nature of normal drug delivery, is not to be flat. What you're noticing here is just how flat it is. At the very beginning, so in the first few days, those DiffuSpheres we put in equilibrate. So we put them in the tissue, they sit there, and they very quickly release some drug and then equilibrate and create balance. I talked about homeostasis, that sort of auto-regulatory state. That's exactly what the DiffuSpheres do within the esophageal tissue. And what you can see is after that about 1 week time point, running all the way out to 1 year, from a single set of injections, the DiffuSphere is delivering drug exactly where we want it, exactly how we want it, at the dose we want it, right into that tissue. The impact of that is really meaningful in a variety of directions. So number one is we talk about clinical remission rates, making patients feel better. So Dupixent, which is the drug I talked about that is currently delivered as a once a week injection, it takes them 10 weeks to achieve, according to their paper. By 10 weeks, they achieve 39% clinical remission. We're demonstrating in our data, we're reaching that level of clinical remission within 2 weeks, escalating all the way to about 70% clinical remission by 6 months, and then maintaining that all the way out to 1 year. So again, that drug is being delivered right into the tissue, having what we believe is a maximum effect locally to the tissue, and being able to deliver clinical remission both quickly and over a long period of time. In addition to that, we actually biopsy the local tissues in order to be able to see the impact that we have on those local tissues. By delivering the drug where we want it and not where we don't want it, what we're seeing here is as we go up in dose, the EOEHSS, which is the histology scoring system. So these are biopsies that we take and we look at 8 different things and it comes up with a score that is specific to the EOE disease. As you look at our higher doses as we're getting here, what you're seeing is we're having more of an impact. That impact is not just reduction in inflammation. That impact is actually reduction in the scar tissue and removal of the scar tissue that's there. So really tissue modifying. And that's why we believe you're seeing the level of impact in clinical remission where 70% of people are in clinical remission. You can also see with the red lines, which is one of the earlier dose, because those patients have reached all the way out to 1 year, you can see we get over that long duration, the tissue not only gets better, it stays better. We expect and hope that what we're going to see is with our highest dose, the green there, as we march through time with lots of data to come, you'll continue to see that. Now, another critical element of precision delivery is safety. So we talked about precision of delivery for efficacy. And hopefully what you've seen from that previous data is that we're getting that efficacy and getting efficacy beyond what is attainable from other therapies in this area and those that are delivered systemically. So here what we see is also the safety side of it. So we're delivering one injection that is lasting throughout an entire 52-week period. And we have a lot of follow-up now. We have 170 months of patient follow-up. Now, the most common complication with steroids, whether used on or off-label in this disease, is fungal infections. So over time, over the course of a year, what you're seeing is fungal infection rates of 20, 25, up to 40%. Now, this is a devastating complication for patients, requires treatment, and usually results in the discontinuation of the drug. We have had 0 cases of candidiasis. Why? Because we're delivering it directly into the tissues, not everywhere else, and we're only delivering at the dose that is required. We're not overdosing on a constant basis, resulting in the allowance of that fungal infection to overtake there. We're also not seeing any changes in cortisol levels, blood sugar levels, and other things that are often associated with the use of steroids. So overall, giving us safety as well. So we believe that a combination of the safety profile that we're seeing here in this study, combined with the efficacy, is a really, really good example of what's actually happening with the DiffuSphere technology. Now, when we think about the DiffuSphere technology and what we can do with it, we believe that it represents a great opportunity both within the gastrointestinal tract. So we are already exploring, as physicians have come to us, seeing the impact that we have had in EOE, that there are other diseases like Crohn's disease that we have the potential to have an impact in where the systemic therapies just aren't having the impact. There needs to be more precision in certain subtypes of Crohn's disease to be able to treat those areas. Same with other gastrointestinal diseases. And then other things like oncology. You can imagine being able to target a tumor very directly, to be able to get that chemotherapeutic agent into the tumor and not into the rest of the body, so avoiding those side effects. Those are things that we anticipate doing and really looking at. I'll give you a bit of a corporate overview of where we stand today, and then happy to really address questions on this. So we are on Nasdaq. We are also on TSX. EPRX is our symbol here. We have cash on hand. If you look at our last quarter, which was reported, which was close to 20 million, we, following that, did an $80.5 million financing. So that was a $70 million base deal with an over allotment that filled in the day following close of another 10.5 million. This was really led, anchored, and really entirely there by very strong healthcare long-only U.S. investors. And that cash really takes us through until 2028 and allows us to do several things. So one is a phase 2b randomized controlled trial in EoE. It's going to read out data in Q3 of 26. We're going to have a variety of more data that's going to be coming each quarter throughout 26 from the trial that I've just been talking about data with. In addition to that, we look at expansion of what we're going to be doing in other areas in the gastrointestinal tract and the opportunity to do it elsewhere as well. And so with that, maybe what I'll do is hand it back to John to be able to address some questions.
Great. Thank you, James. I appreciate it. We do have a couple questions. One is, since we're on the cap table there and the financing, can you give some insight as to how sort of what price that was done at, and how did that get determined in the process? As the stock was volatile through the process, and I think hit over 7. Anyway, can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was a confidentially marketed process, but a public offering. And so when we began that process, our shares were at about $5. Because we had released some data in the weeks prior, been out on the road, I think there were a lot of investors who were very interested in our stock. As you point out, was really running and kind of reached that $7 frame. And so it was coming back a little bit by the time we were closing the financing. And so 550, which is where that deal was done, is actually above the price. So it was a 10% premium to where we started marketing the deal. And so really represented, based on, being well oversubscribed with the institutions that we had, the strong support that we got from U.S. institutions, in a sense, without too much price sensitivity, given we were, a premium to where we started marketing that deal in a confidential process.
Got it. That makes sense. Just note, everyone, that if you do look at the year chart today at this is delayed quotes, but at 6:02, the stock is actually up 155.08% over the last year to date. So it's been, as James been adding value, the share price seems to be staying along with him, and now he's got the cash at hand, like he said, through 28. So it's an interesting time to be having this specific event, and that people are discovering it after sort of what I always have allotted to is the you said a very kind way that the smart U.S. healthcare investors, I've always said sort of the biotech mafia, probably crude, but they do. I've invested alongside a lot of these funds for years, and it was great to see them come in here, in my opinion, and for you to have the fuel to go show and create more value. So a quick switch off of the financing. Thanks for answering that. A couple questions are, one is, can the DiffuSphere technology be used in the lower GI tract, for example, Crohn's, or would the constant flow through the tract dislodge the spheres?
Yeah, so that's a really great question. So we can absolutely use this in the lower GI tract. The esophagus also has a lot of flow that's always passing over it. And so really what happens is that, and I'll actually show you a picture here of the way this is delivered. And so what you see on the left-hand side here is actually the endoscope itself. Now, this scope, there's one scope that goes in the top and another that can go through the bottom. They essentially function the same way. They have in them a light, a camera, and a port through which you can actually run a tool. The tool you see in the top right is basically a long catheter with a needle at the end. That needle can inject the lower GI tract. So, for example, the question is absolutely right, in Crohn's disease or in ulcerative colitis, where you were to see lesions. So an example of that is fibrostenotic Crohn's. So it's a very challenging Crohn's, often leads to bowel obstructions and the need for actual resection of that bowel. And so physicians are believing, based on the data we're seeing in EoE, that actually they could go into the lower GI tract actually inject directly into the tissue there, our microspheres remain in the wall of the lower GI tract, constantly releasing drug, just like what we're seeing up in the esophagus.
Thank you. Thank you. Here's I guess sort of a follow-up to it. As you hopefully take this market into EOE and take the market or EOE market and other GI indications, can you talk to the financial incentives to physicians to provide endoscopy and other in your procedures versus prescribing medications?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we look at this right now, so the gastroenterologists essentially are faced with they can use an off-label steroid with the complications we talked about before. There is an on-label steroid, but it is only approved for 12 weeks of use. And of course, this is really a lifelong disease and a progressive disease. So it doesn't really give physicians or patients a real opportunity there. So Dupixent is really the gold standard today. It's a once-a-week injection. It's roughly $100,000 a year. So fairly pricey and no real motivation for the physician there. For them, it's a lot of paperwork to be able to get that approved by the insurance companies for the patients. And really, physicians don't get paid well for paperwork. Now, gastroenterologists are actually paid quite well to do interventional procedures, meaning endoscopies. And so both upper and lower GI endoscopies are a key part of the business practice and business operations of a gastroenterologist. So you can imagine what we're saying here is you get to do the procedure, which is number one, something you should be doing anyway, as once a year patients are supposed to, at a minimum, undergo an endoscopy to monitor the progress of the disease. So we're ensuring patients are coming back for that because the therapy is delivered at the same time. They also get compensated. So there's an existing CPT code that covers injection of any material, which would include our drug, into the submucosa, which is exactly where this is injected. And so it's also a procedure that they're used to doing. They inject things in the submucosa quite a bit. And so this very much aligns with the business practice for the physician. It also is very good for the payers because this way you're ensuring compliance. You've got long-term therapy, and that usually compliance means you have fewer emergency room visits, fewer unscheduled doctor visits, and fewer complications also from a safety perspective. And then from the patient's perspective, imagine they just show up for something they were going for anyway. They get delivered a medicine while they're asleep, and that is all they need to do. So really, when we think about all of the important players in this, we believe that this therapy offers a great opportunity for each of them.
Thank you. Uh, Here's another follow-up question. How much read-through exists in the data from OA to EOE to GI indications to other unannounced indications? And does this de-risk the delivery technology, or is every indication require a new and separate proof of concept?
Yeah, so it is a really great question. And absolutely, this de-risks both the diffusphere technology and also its application in the GI tract and beyond. So what we've demonstrated here is that the diffusphere can deliver directly into the GI tract. So wherever it is, we're injecting it there. And that will deliver over a long period of time with great precision. So as we look at other therapeutic areas like Crohn's disease, for example, like stenotic diseases, so benign esophageal strictures, which are very common and have no therapy for them today, but very disruptive for patients. Those are real opportunities where we've really reduced the risk because we know this drug works in these diseases for the most part. It's just been a real delivery problem. How do you deliver it with precision and duration and safety? And EOE is demonstrating the ability to do that. The second part of that question is, what does this tell us about the diffusphere? Well, we know that we've used the diffusphere in osteoarthritis. So in other words, we know that this can work when you inject it into the fluid around a joint. We also know that this is working when you inject it into a non-fluid filled tissue space like the esophagus. So when you start to extrapolate that out into, say, can I inject this into a tumor for cancer? It really says there is much lower risk here, particularly when you're talking about taking a drug that is already known and understood And that makes it easier both from a regulatory perspective as well as from a risk and development perspective going forward.
Okay. Take a little bit of step back regarding EOE specifically. A common question that comes up when we've done events in the past across the country is that the question is, why is this happening, EOE? Why is, I know somebody that has it, or my son has it, or, it's becoming more and more, people are becoming more and more aware of this as we've been speaking and otherwise. But yeah, can you speak to that? I know that's a common question.
Yeah, and it's interesting because people look at this meteoric growth, going from, 150,000 patients just 5 years ago to, estimates between 500,000 at the very lowest to 1 million at the high end in the United States. Why this rapid growth? Is it something in the environment? Is it something else? And there's really two answers to that. So one is there absolutely is a growth in the disease itself. The other, and I think the largest factor today, is simply education. People are learning about this disease. As I said at the beginning, we all know what Crohn's disease is, yet most people don't know and haven't heard of eosinophilic esophagitis. And by the way, that also includes some physicians. When I went through medical school, nobody taught us about eosinophilic esophagitis. It was not a disease that was taught in school. And so we would see these patients come to the emergency room with food stuck. We would rule out cancer. And then we would say, well, we're not actually sure what's wrong with you. It's very inflamed. We don't really know what to do. Maybe control your eating, don't have meat, don't have bread. Very disruptive to their life. And so it was when physicians actually started biopsying and looking for commonalities in these patients that they discovered eosinophilic esophagitis. So these white cells that were part of what was causing this inflammatory process and causing the disease to really unfold. Well, now the next step is education. And so prior to Dupixent, there weren't really a lot of medications to offer patients. So even if you diagnosed them, you had nothing to do for them. With Dupixent, it has allowed patients to really sort of say there is a long-term treatment available that is absolutely much better than nothing and living with this. And so we see that 39% of patients are getting into clinical remission. So then instead of being misdiagnosed or stuck with a diagnosis of reflux disease or something else, which is often misdiagnosed as reflux, that really now the recommendations are if a patient has dysphagia, which is difficulty swallowing, or donophagia, which is pain on swallowing, they should get a biopsy and rule in or out EOE. And as that starts to happen, you see the growth rate in the disease rise really, really rapidly.
Thank you. Here's a follow-up question. Regarding the FDA, it appears to me that delivering an existing drug in a more elegant way and reducing patient annual costs is something the FDA likes. Can you comment on FDA interactions?
Absolutely. So we've had very successful FDA interactions, across our programs. And you're absolutely right. When we take a very well-characterized drug like fluticasone propionate that tens of millions of people a day are taking in some form, and we take that drug and deliver it in a disease where we know that steroids work, and we deliver it at levels that the FDA knows from the other applications are safe, and we continue to demonstrate that safety as well as the efficacy. Absolutely. So number one, it gives us access to what's called a 505(b)(2) pathway, which is a more rapid regulatory approval pathway. It allows us to skip various steps because the drug is so well understood. We also know, for example, from our osteoarthritis drug where we have fast track approval process. And so there are a variety of things, those regulatory interactions have sort of said, yes, this is a very low risk approach that really we're demonstrating that, taking advantage of what's already known about the drugs and allowing us to move fairly quickly. And so we look forward to being able to continue to do that, not just with EOE, but also in other GI indications, and also as we branch into other drugs and other therapeutic areas. And overall, with that comment, we believe that by ensuring a good safety and efficacy in a disease that's superior to what is out there, combined with pricing that makes it really makes sense for the payer. And with a mechanism where the physician is well incented to use the drug, it creates a really nice balance where each of the key stakeholders is getting a win.
Thank you, James. Switching gears to the financial side again,
Yeah.
you worked with some good banks here to accomplish your financial goals here recently, and a number of them have come out with some updated coverage or initiation of coverage and some pretty interesting price targets in the double-digit range. Can you speak to the breadth of those, who is and where their price targets are?
Yeah, absolutely. So we were very lucky with a strong banking syndicate led by Cantor with LifeSci there as well, and real experts in this space and here. And so we have coverage from them as well as from Raymond James, H.C. Wainwright, Craig Hallam, and Research Capital. And so when we look at that coverage universe, you're right. What people are doing is they're looking and making projections. Those projections, when you read through their reports, are based on the size of the EOE market. And so, without walking through all of their math, I'll kind of give a very simple sense of what it is they're looking at and why they're making these projections. For as our data continues to mature, how they see our value as rising very dramatically. If you look at the price of Dupixent at $100,000 for a patient with EOE for a once-a-week injection, if they treat 25,000 of those patients, that's $2.5 billion a year. And that seems to be probably roughly where they are. We don't know exactly, but from Q&As that we've seen in their quarterlies. If you provide a therapy that is more convenient, more cost-effective, and particularly if you can also achieve better efficacy, you can imagine that the math of achieving 100,000 patients, 200,000 patients out of what could be 800,000 to a million, you actually start to create a very, very large opportunity that's very interesting and compelling for large pharma, as they're always looking for new products for their pipeline, but as a commercial entity, creates real opportunity. And so they're really sort of backing out of that math. And if you look at their math, they're very conservative on pricing, penetration, as well as the size of the market, and only looking at EOE, not at any of the other GI opportunities that sit in front of us.
Okay, thank you. Just a reminder, remind us from the balance sheet's perspective, is there any debt on the at Eupraxia?
Great question. There's no debt at all.
No debt, and approximately 100 million post this offering is of cash is now available to push forward with your business, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, great. Just a reminder, we're going to close things out right now, James, but I wanted to remind everyone that we will be posting the event video here at the Tribe Public YouTube channel later today, and then be putting into the Tribe This Week or newsletter. So please share it, and or if you want to review any information on it, know you're going to have that ability to do so. Also note that I was talking to James yesterday. We're trying to coordinate dates. He's very busy and in demand these days as people are interested in what he's doing, and the institutions are continuing to follow up with him, and even more beyond that sort of, if you will, miss the deal. He's trying to address their answers and questions, and as they look at the promises with this post this financing and where he might be headed. But we're looking to try to get him somewhere here in the country in December. He's given us some dates. If you want to put your hand up, please let me know. I do have some people already interested, but we're trying to coordinate with a few dates that we can get with James, and we appreciate it again, James, that you will afford the time to come out and meet the tribe. So again, through the wish list, or just ping me directly, either at the website or directly to me. Just let me know if and when you'd like to see James. again if you haven't, and or if you would like to see him for the first time. So, James, thanks for participating today, getting us updated on Eupraxia, and thanks for everyone at the tribe across the world that joined, and for your questions. And congratulations, James, for getting the business to this stage. And I'm looking forward to where you're going to take this company. And I'm excited, just as well as you're bringing these needed drugs that are, as we said, changing lives, hopefully here in the future, in these indications and beyond. We'll see where this platform technology takes you. So thanks again, and I look forward to hearing from you. And again, remember, if you want to hear from him again through a webinar event in the future as he makes progress, please express that at the wish list too. So thanks again, all. Thank you, James. Have a great rest of the week, everyone, and let's go, Eupraxia. We're excited for you.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, John. Thank you, everybody. And we're thrilled to have the opportunity to be able to deliver what we think are great therapies for patients, as well as make exciting things for investors, and be able to deliver that growth. So thank you very much, everybody, for the time. And John, thank you for hosting.
All the best, all. Thank you.
Okay, take care.